I had this one week where I saw the words, "Pain is your purpose," 3 different times. Well, I saw it twice and I heard from a speaker the 3rd time. So 3 times I read or heard those words as specifically, "Pain is your purpose." I have heard that concept, my decade of, work in coaching and personal development. I've heard that idea. But it was this direct 4 words put together in such a, it was just like laser, that had me get curious in a little bit of a different way. I knew what my greatest pain was. I knew that my greatest pain was getting teased in junior high school, publicly humiliated day after day. These 3 popular girls used to moo, make these bovine cow calls in my direction day after day after day. And I knew that trauma, in my body, I could feel that is the thing that just hurt the most out of anything that I've experienced in life. And I always thought that pain and that story belonged in my yoga work for some reason, and I have done so much therapy around that situation, so much forgiveness processes, coaching, you name it. It was years ago, I got invited to do a speech at a yoga festival, and the theme was that we're stronger when we're together. And I knew that was the story to open with. I had never yet shared that story of being publicly humiliated in junior high publicly. I had never shared it before this speech. I had done so much work on it, forgiveness and healing and coaching. So when I went to go start to write the speech, I was very surprised that my body had a visceral reaction similar to the first day that those girls cupped their hands and started moving in my direction. I was so shocked, and I remember thinking, golly, I thought that I have done all the work on this. I thought that I was over this. But I kept meeting it. Preparing for that speech, it took me the entire day just to get through how to tell that story, because there was so much of the trauma still left in my body around that story. It was really hard to be with it. It was in the process, though, of preparing that story that the way I told that story changed. What changed in the story was I went from forgiveness to empathy. I had done a lot of work of forgiving them, but the whole message of my talk was that we're stronger when we're together. And I knew that the only way to unite and be together is to stop whatever we're doing to create separation. And I realized as I was preparing the talk, I realized, wow, forgiveness, I am still putting myself above them. Because forgiveness is me saying that there is something that there's a right or there's a wrong that needs to be righted. That somehow, because I was the victim, that I'm better than them. And part of my forgiveness was I had to imagine that their lives must be worse than mine, that they didn't have as much love, that they had all of that kind of stuff. And so the whole process of how I came to forgive them was still creating separateness. And the theme of my whole message of the talk was to stop the separation, and it begins with us in doing our own inner work. And in that process, I found empathy. In that process, I really looked at, the same bully that exists in them exists within me, except for so much worse. I have been so much meaner to my body over the past, they bullied me for a year. I bullied my own body for a decade or more. And when I really got that, I felt a connection to them. I felt a sameness. And I also realized that the same capacity to love and forgive and, find that space of empathy, if it exists in me, it exists within them also. That transmuted the meaning of that story to me in giving that talk. And it was in that process that I formulated a belief around how we tell and share our stories. And I still believe this today. I believe that when we become willing to share our stories in service to others, we start changing the way that we tell the stories. And when we start changing the way that we tell our stories, we start discovering the meaning of our stories. And the meaning starts to point to a purpose in our life that will lead us in a direction of fulfillment beyond what we could possibly imagine. So that one night I was reading the book. It was the third time I had seen Pain is Your Purpose that I decided to get curious. And I thought, okay, well, let me look at this. If pain is my purpose, how does this story make sense in why I do what I do? For those of you that know my women's work that I do, you're probably thinking, well, duh, obvious, but it wasn't obvious to me. I did not see it at all. I was oblivious to it. I had to be like in 1 week, pointed very specifically 3 times, and then get curious, and then really look at it and look and look and look, and then it was, duh, it's right there. I feel called to work with women. My message is sacred sisterhood. Who else but somebody who felt kicked out of sisterhood and, humiliated by their sisters would have a message of sacred sisterhood? When I saw this, it just blew my mind. It was like this, this whole embodied, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. And in that one insight, snap of a fingers, the fuel of my work and my purpose just like 100x. There's no way that you could stop me in doing what I feel called to do now, because it's what I have to do. It makes me feel like it's what I'm put on the earth here to do. And all of those things that happened to me, all of those little instances, all lined up so that I could be the messenger of sacred sisterhood. I started working with a TED Talk coach this past year. And this TED Talk coach took me through a process that I have taken clients through for years in helping create a core stand statement. Your core stand is your strongest held beliefs. It's a part of the soul purpose work that I do in helping people put words to who they really are and the impact that they want to make. And so the core stand is one of the exercises that I do to really put into words your strongest held beliefs. And I always knew that I always would say it's like your life why. But here's what I didn't understand until now. And this is what's this is just, all the dots are connecting for me in this right now. This concept of pain is your purpose and your message is your medicine. So we all have, I believe, this is my hypothesis, I don't know this to be true, but in my experience and everybody that I've been experimenting and testing out this theory with seems to be true so far. We all have a greatest pain. And in this work, there is no more severe or less severe when it comes to pain. One person's pain of not making the high school cheerleading team could be just as severe as one person's pain of, watching their parents die in front of them. It's how it affects you. It's a trauma. And trauma is anything that overwhelms the senses and we don't have the capacity to cope. It can be any level of trauma, any situation. But we all have one that is most severe to us. So on a personal level, there is a more severe. On a global, like human level, humanity level, there's not. It's how it affects us, how it imprints in our psyche. This imprint creates a subconscious code. And so the thing that's important to understand here is a little bit about how the brain works, because the brain has, like, in a very simplistic way, you have your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. Your conscious mind can process about 40 bits per second if you look at your mind like it was a computer. Your subconscious can process 40 million bits per second. And it's that way, our brain is that way so that we can take on as much as we can take on. Otherwise, we would have to really think about brushing our teeth every time, and walking and driving and all those things that we can learn once and slip back into the subconscious and do on autopilot. Your subconscious mind is constantly writing code. From the moment of consciousness, it's writing code for two things: avoid pain, move towards what's comfortable. Avoid pain, move towards what's comfortable. It's writing this code based on reaction. So you're not even aware that you're doing it. Touch hot stove, that's painful, never do that again, right? Girl breaks heart, don't fall in love again. Only when the love is so enticing will you, but you're going to be more cautious, right? So we're not consciously aware of the code that we are writing, but we are writing code to never experience pain again. So if you think about it, you have your greatest pain, the thing that completely shocks your system, that hurts in your heart and your soul the very most, whatever it was. You will do anything in your power, consciously or subconsciously, to never experience that again, even in your memories. So when it comes to this work, there's a spectrum of avoidance with the pain, everything from complete disassociation, you cannot even remember it. Many people have, they've subconsciously blacked out and forgotten the pain, right? To people who have, been with the pain enough that they can talk about it. So that on that spectrum of avoiding, there's that spectrum of no memory of, and being able to speak and share it out loud to other people. There's a whole spectrum. In that spectrum, there's this piece that I find really, really fascinating, and it's a piece that fits into another puzzle that I am playing with, and this is a puzzle of leadership. I believe the leaders the world is waiting for are what I call wolf-like leaders. I spent some time at a wolf sanctuary last summer in Southern California. It was an amazing experience. My friend Teo created the sanctuary, and the story is incredible. And I learned from Teo about the wolf culture, and I learned about leadership. One of the things that just warmed my heart to learn about wolves is the alpha male does not crave leadership. They don't duke it out and fight to be the alpha. They don't fight each other for it. The alpha male will step into that role only when he sees it's what must be done. But he doesn't want it. He doesn't want to be the leader. He doesn't want to be on the stage. He doesn't want all the, publicity and the fame. He will only step into that role when he sees it's what must be done for the good of all. And I believe that those are the leaders the world is waiting for. So these wolf-like leaders are reluctant leaders. And they're reluctant to lead for a few different reasons. And it's these exact reasons that they're reluctant to lead that are going to make them the perfect leaders, the leaders the world is needing right now. One of the reasons that they're reluctant to lead is it's part of the avoidance of that pain, right? One of the reasons that they will avoid it is, and really looking at your purpose. One of the reasons that we get confused about what our purpose is we're avoiding that pain. We know it's linked to that pain and we don't want to go there. And so we make our purpose be like all these other things that are around it, but we won't go right there. I'm in this work constantly, and it took a little bit of serendipitous occurrences to even have me to go in and look very specifically. Even when I went in and looked, there was some reluctance to even talk about this story. Even the first time I shared that story, I knew it was the story to begin with, there was reluctance for several different reasons. One of those reasons was, how can I talk about this? There's people out in the world that have experienced that. This, if I talk about this as this great pain, I'm discrediting those more severe traumatic experiences that I know people have suffered with. I felt guilty that my pain was less severe than other people's pain, so I didn't want to talk about it. There was also the not wanting to talk about it because I didn't know if I could actually talk about it. It brought up so much emotion, and it was really scary thinking about going on a public stage and doing that. But it's the reluctance, it's part of that feeling guilty to talk about our pain because maybe it wasn't as severe as. Feeling guilty to talk about the pain because it might affect other people. There's a whole package of reluctance in going into this pain. Another reason that these wolf-like leaders are reluctant, and this is like what I call the miracle paradox. They're reluctant because they don't do their message perfectly. So my pain came from these girls teasing me in junior high. My message is sacred sisterhood. The work that I feel called to do is to help women unite, and I feel to do that to bring more of a feminine voice to all conversations, and not for feminine supremacy that would just recreate the problem, but for an equal, women need to rise up to have that equal masculine feminine collaboration the way nature does. We need more of that feminine energy to be more in a balance the way that nature is. And that's what I feel very called to do. And even before I saw all of this pain as your purpose, when I was working with Mimi, my TED Talk coach, she helped me resurface, or she helped me look at that, basically take me through the process that I have taken so many clients through in creating their core stand statement. It wasn't until recently when Mimi took me through it and took that process and helped me refine and define my message that I saw that the core stand is actually linked to the pain as well. Okay, so I know there's a lot of puzzle pieces together that and truthfully, I am putting this puzzle piece together in real time. This is all just coming to me. I've been playing with it with myself, experimenting with clients, and it's blowing my mind. So I wanted to do this video so I could share it with whoever's interested. If anybody wants to play with this with me, we can play a little bit more. So for years, in the soul purpose process, I've been taking people through this core stand process to help them put into words their strongest held beliefs and what it is they know to be true, basically their life why. Not until Mimi took me through mine and I saw that my message was sacred sisterhood. And then the coincidence of seeing 3 times, pain is your purpose, sitting with that, seeing the link that I just recently realized your core stand statement also points to that pain. So here you have you experience your greatest pain in life, whatever that is. There's a natural avoidance to be with that pain, even in your memories. You will do anything in your power, consciously and subconsciously, to never experience that pain again. Your monkey mind, the part of the brain that is focused on keeping you alive, is using fear, doubt, worry, to move you away from that pain, to never experience that again. It's moving you away through the energy of fear. But your soul purpose, your soul wisdom is also moving you in a different direction. But it's not using fear. It's using truth and love. And your core stand is actually the wisdom of your life that guidance of truth and love has moved you in an opposite direction of, away from. So the core stand is an important piece in the pain is your purpose, your message is your medicine. When you start to see what your message is and you put it into words, that's how it becomes clear. And you have to do that first. You have to be able to put your message into words to see that it's clear. There will be another reluctance to be the messenger because you won't, if you are the perfect messenger of this message, you won't do it perfectly, which is what makes you the perfect person to deliver this message. That's why I call it the miracle paradox. When I saw that sacred sisterhood was my message, Mimi helped me refine and define it, right? Because there will be places in the moving away from the pain where it's in those where you track, where you do it from truth and love, and it moves towards more expansion and in life. When you can track what's going on, what you're doing and how you're doing it, that is your message. That's your secret sauce. But it's so the water you swim in, you can't not see it. You need somebody's help to really pull that out and identify it. Your message so you have your message. So my message is sacred sisterhood. I'm going to call it secret sauce for now, just making up that word. But your secret sauce, my secret sauce is, how do I get from not being in sacred sisterhood to sacred sisterhood? That's the secret sauce. Because I don't do sacred sisterhood perfectly. I can't do it perfectly because my core wound is to avoid that. And so anytime I feel threatened by a woman, a beautiful woman, amazing woman, actually sometimes just a woman being beautiful and amazing is going to feel like a threat to me. And so I will do the opposite of sacred sisterhood. I will want to judge and compare and compete and criticize and separate myself to protect myself. That's my survival pattern, is wrapped around doing the opposite of sacred sisterhood. But my soul wisdom has also been teaching me in my life a way I really want to be with women, where we don't compare, compete, or criticize, where we support and collaborate and heal and unite and uplift and encourage. That is heaven to me. Of course it would be heaven, right? My pain is the opposite of it. So my secret sauce is, when I'm not doing sacred sisterhood, how do I get to sacred sisterhood? This came to me when I was working with Mimi, and she made a comment. She said she assumed that with my message of sacred sisterhood sacred sisterhood is our primitive way of being with each other as women, where we don't judge, compare, and compete. She made an assumption in a conversation that I used to do sisterhood that way, where you judge and compare and compete. And I said, oh no, Mimi, sacred sisterhood is a choice I have to make every day. I still have inclinations. Actually, just the other day, I read a book by an author. I felt she just wrote the book for me. I reached out, I sent a long email to her, and she, a long, thoughtful email, really wanted to connect with her, and her assistant messaged me back saying, thank you. I was so offended. My reaction was, I'm not going to buy any more of her stuff. I'm going to do anything. I'm going to stop promoting her book. That's my survival pattern, because my core wound was, amazing women teasing me. Because I have defined my message of sacred sisterhood and I have my steps on how I get there, when I noticed I did that, it's that reticular activator, right? You can notice it when you have words to it. I am not looking for a Toyota Sienna. I never see them until I start shopping for them. Now I see them everywhere. My daughter sees them everywhere. When you put words to what your core survival patterns are and your message is, and your steps to get there, your awareness, your reticular activator kicks in and you can identify. So the moment I started judging this author whose assistant, who didn't reach out to me in the way that I would have preferred her to reach out to me, I laughed at myself. And then I exhaled, which is my first step to get to sacred sisterhood. And I have a practice of, when I am not doing sacred sisterhood, to lean into it, to do the opposite of what my survival pattern does. I promote her more. I responded to her assistant. I do the opposite of. That's my practice. So I told Mimi, I don't do sacred sisterhood perfectly, which I think is what gives me the ability to talk about sacred sisterhood very genuinely, very vulnerably, and very authentically. The leaders the world is waiting for are wolf-like leaders. They're vulnerable, who are willing to step into vulnerable leadership, who aren't stepping on a platform and saying, I have all the answers, I have it figured out, come follow me. Who wants to follow that leader? Not me. I want a leader who's with me down in the trenches and saying, I don't have all of your answers, but I struggle with the same thing you struggle with, and I am committed to growing and developing. And if you want to do it side by side, come join me. That's the leader I believe the world is waiting for. If you agree with me, you're probably sensing you're a wolf-like leader too. And there's probably a message that feels really important to you that you want to share, and you know you don't do it perfectly. If you are willing to talk about the ways you don't do it perfectly and refine and define your message so that you know what your secret sauce is, so that you have your words, so that when you're not doing it perfectly, you can take your medicine. You are the very best person in the entire world to talk about it, because you are the person who can speak directly to the hearts of the people who need to hear your message the most. Pain is your purpose. Your message is your medicine. For the leaders who aren't taking their message, when you don't take your medicine, when you aren't practicing what you preach, when you're not being authentic and vulnerable and genuine, not the perfect leader to talk about it, right? It can be messy leadership. But I think the only way to really be in leadership with this is to really be vulnerable and authentic. If you have your medicine with you in hand, it's easier to talk about it. I don't know, maybe I'm realizing this even as I'm speaking, that might even be part of the miracle paradox, because for me, when I talk about it publicly, just even as I've shared here, I am more committed to any time I notice subconsciously I'm judging or comparing or competing a sister. There is just no way that I'm not going to look at it and face it and be with it when I'm speaking about it openly. But I have to tell you that I don't do it perfectly, because if I tell you I do it perfectly, when it comes up for me, I'll hide it. I'll hide it from you. And if I hide it from you, I'm just going to keep doing it. I'm going to go down a rabbit hole of my own self-destruction. But if I don't hide it from you and I out myself, I have so much room and space to grow, to take my own medicine, and to let this journey be a much more beautiful one. So check it out. What's that message that feels very much alive in you, maybe that you're resisting? When I work with clients in this process, when I first started experimenting with clients, the place to begin is the core stand. I look at the core stand. What's that? From the core stand, I've learned I have to ask the direct question, what was your greatest pain in life? In the beginning, I didn't. I used to dance around that question. I tried to figure it out in a kinder way, and I wouldn't get there. Every time I went I'd get frustrated. What is your greatest pain? Boom, we'd go right there. And as they go into there, but when you go in with the core stand in hand, that's the beginning of the medicine. It starts to make sense. When things start to make sense, so much begins to open up. In this process that I've worked with people that they didn't want to go into that pain, when we do it with the core stand and we're looking with the intention of pain is your purpose and your message is your medicine, and we're looking to put the dots together, what happens is that pain that once was so shameful that they couldn't even say out loud to another person, they feel empowered by. Some of them have said, that is so incredible. In this one conversation, that pain went from shame to empowerment. And it's a miracle paradox. That's why I call it the miracle paradox. So if you want to find more fuel for your passion, and by the way, I believe this is not just for a few people called to do this. I believe that every single human being has had a greatest pain in their life. How we have been with that pain is what positions you for leadership. Because there's a saying, every terrible thing that happens to us will either make us bitter or better. And this is for, once you have taken that pain and moved in enough direction to become better, it positions you to really dive in and do this work to point towards a purpose in your life that feels like it is the ultimate purpose, right? I also want to make note here that some pain in life, this process requires sometimes some therapy and some work and some time. For some people, I won't even work with them if they haven't done therapy yet. When somebody's done, I can tell if somebody's ready to dive into this process. One of the ways that you can tell is if you can talk about that pain without completely breaking down. Like, you still are going to feel it, but you can talk about that painful moment in your life. Still going to bring up all the feelings, but you can actually share it with another person. If you have never shared this greatest pain with another person, it might require a bit of healing work first. And that healing work is the foundational piece to start to let your soul wisdom teach you and inform you and move you in the direction of better. Once it does that, and you do that, then you have something to work with to really bring that pain to a greater purpose, refine and define your message, and step into a vulnerable leadership that will feel like it is the purpose and the calling of your life. Step you into a journey where everything begins to feel so magical. And it's like, it reminds me of those in the 90s, those posters that in the mall, they were like the 3D posters. I don't know if you remember those. I used to stare at them, and the person next to me could see it, and I get so frustrated. And then I'd stare at it long enough and I'd see it. Oh my gosh, it's a dolphin, I see it. Person next to me is not seeing it yet. I want to do anything I can in my power to help them see it, because it's right there. That's how I feel in this. I feel like showing the whole world that, oh my gosh, you have no idea, every single thing in your life, the dots are going to connect in this whole, it's going to just pop like a 3D image, and everything is going to make sense. And when everything makes sense, it is so radical. That experience of being teased in junior high, I worked on forgiveness, and I got to a certain level. And then I worked on empathy, and it got me to a certain level. In this process, it is damn near one of the brightest gems in my treasure chest of life. If I saw those girls today, I would hug and kiss them, because they pointed me in a direction of a purpose and doing something in life that feels, I couldn't imagine not doing this. It brings me so much joy, and this is a passion, this is a joy that I want for every single human being. And if you've experienced pain that moves you to tears, you can experience a joy from this process, and you turning that pain into purpose and refining and defining your message that brings you to tears in a whole new way. I really hope you, if not now, at some point, dive in. And if the time is now to dive in, please do. If you want my support, let me know. I'd love to do it. It's my favorite rabbit hole to go down. Namaste.